Well, I'm really super excited today, folks, because we're kicking off our website series with the one and only fabulous Ivana Katz. Ivana, how are you today?
I'm good. It's like should there be a drum roll?
There will be. I will put that in the editing of the show. There will be a drum roll and everything. So, how's life in Sydney this morning?
Freezing. I'm sitting here with a blanket on my lap today.
Yes.
It's been like that for the whole weekend pretty much, and I think we've got a few more days of freezing. But I don't mind because I work at home and I'm cozy at home.
Yeah, isn't that fantastic? You don't have to go outside and commute to work, to the office, and get blown around and rained upon. I've heard you've had a lot of rain down that way as well. Is there flooding going on or what?
Not as far as I know. I don't think there's flooding, but there has been quite a bit of rain. So,
right. Okay.
Although, mind you, we need a bit of rain. I think a lot of the country areas are quite dry at the moment, so not a bad thing.
Fantastic. And for everybody that's been watching the last couple of videos we've done together, they'll remember that it's been your birthday recently. So are you still celebrating, or is that the celebrations have now come to an end?
No, we celebrated over like 3 weeks, so we're done now for the year.
Fantastic. Well, we're starting off a really exciting journey today, folks. And if you're tuning in for the first time, Ivana and I recently met, and we're doing a wonderful collaboration together where Websites for Small Business, which is the name of Ivana's business, and Humaneity are launching this wonderful series, which is the first episode today. And Ivana's going to be walking us through the exciting process of actually creating a website. And Ivana, tell us about how important it is to have a good website to start off with.
Well, you know what? That's actually an elephant that I wanted to address, an elephant in the room, because a lot of people believe that if they have a social profile, they don't need a website, or they just have a landing page and they don't need a website. I know I'm a website designer, but I believe that your website should be the center of your business universe. This is where everything happens. This is where you take bookings. This is where you sell your products. This is where you answer people's questions. This is where you interact with people about the products and services that you offer. This is where you link to social profiles. You have webinars, and I could go on. I've actually got a list of 27 reasons why you need a website.
Wow, so, 27.
Yeah, 27. And I don't think we've got long enough today for me to go through. But I have a wonderful graphic designer who's actually putting it into an infographic for me. So when it's available, I'll let you know and we can publish it. One thing that where people go wrong believing that having a social media profile is enough for their business is you have no control over social media networks. The algorithms change, which means that your posts are not being seen. If your account gets hacked, your business may be shut down altogether. Sometimes it can take weeks, even months to reinstate your account. People change the networks that they go to. Look at MySpace. A few years ago, everybody was on MySpace. Now you haven't even heard of it. And so if you had built your whole business around MySpace, you might as well shut down. And social networks shut down. Look at what happened with Google+. I mean, they were 198 million users.
Wow.
And they shut down. So again, if your business was centered on a Google+ platform, your business would be shut down. So with a website, you have absolute control over what you do, providing you use the right platform. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on.
Yeah, this is great. And for everybody watching today and listening out there in online land, we'll call it, because everybody's online these days, online land, Ivana's going to be coming on the show once a month, and she's going to be going through a different topic every month to talk about the development of your website. So this is a series, so get dialed in, sit down with your notepad or record the show and get ready to be taken through all the different steps of actually building a website. So today's episode 1, Ivana, what are we going to start off talking about today?
Well, today we're going to actually talk about things you need to know before you even start looking at creating a website, because there's a lot of planning that goes into it. Most people don't realize, and I get a little bit cranky with some online builders because they say, our platform is so easy to use. Just grab a bit of text, grab a few images or a video, and your website is done. And nothing could be further from the truth. It's not just about how the website looks. There's so much more. And so today what I wanted to do is, in preparation for building a website, there are some things that you do need to know.
Now, the other special piece of news that we're going to share today is that Ivana has been very gracious and generous to help us at Humaneity with our own website development. And this is going to be a case study for everybody to be able to look at as we run through the series. So we're going to be launching our website within the next week, and we're going to be showing you the evolution of our website as we go forward, based on all the wonderful skill sets and experience and knowledge that Ivana has shared with us. So not only are we going to be talking about it on the show, but you're going to be able to see it live in action with the Humaneity website. So Ivana, I want to say on air, thank you for your help with our amazing website. We're so tremendously happy with it, and we can't wait to share it with the world now because it's so exciting for us, and it really has helped us in our evolution. But more importantly, we're going to be able to show people all the things that you've been talking about, right? And we're going to be able to say,
absolutely.
Look, look at this. This is how we did this part for Humaneity, etc., etc. So, right, where are we going to start today? What's our first topic that we're going to address?
All right, so I'll just run through the things that I wanted to talk about, and then we'll get into the meat of today's episode. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about are some numbers, some really important numbers that people need to understand when they're getting their business online. Next thing, we're going to talk about domain names. We're going to talk about the importance of a logo. We're going to talk about understanding your customer. We'll touch a little bit on website content, choosing a website design platform and theme, and at the end I'll be giving out some homework. But I won't be marking it. But
I think we should mark it. I think you should take a test for this for everybody.
Okay, sounds good. So those are the things that I want to touch on, and then we'll be taking questions maybe for next episode. If somebody wasn't sure about something that I touched on, I'm happy to answer them next time.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So let's do that. So if you're out there and you're watching this episode and you've got a question about anything that Ivana talks about today, we'll do a recap of this episode in the beginning of the next episode so that we can answer all those questions for you. Okay, brilliant. So I've just shown everybody the agenda for today, Ivana. So now we can start off with domain name if you want.
Well, actually, before we start on that, I wanted to share a story.
Please.
Now, initially, that story may not make a lot of sense, but I'll bring it home. So about 18 months ago, my son came home from school and he said, "Mum, I got pulled out of class by the teacher." And I went, "Oh my gosh, what did you do?" And he said, No, it's all good. He said, "But they want me to run for a leadership role." And I was so excited. I'm like, what a fantastic opportunity. But he said to me, "I don't know if I want to do it." And I was taken aback because he's usually very motivated. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "I'll think about it." And I asked him what the first thing that he needed to do. And he said it was to write a speech. So came Sunday night. I'm standing in the doorway to his room and I said, "Have you prepared your speech?" And he said, "Nah, I've decided not to do it." And I remember standing there and I was conflicted because I'm thinking, like, he's 17, I need to let him make his own decisions. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, I'm a mum and I can't let him miss on this fantastic opportunity because I knew that it had the potential to open many doors for him. And so I stood there and I thought to myself, hell no, he's not missing this. And we know how easy it is to convince teenagers to do something.
Yeah, right.
So I said, "I'm not moving from the doorway until you get up and you write that speech." And I told him I didn't care how he was going to do, whether he would get into a leadership role or not, but just going through the process. So he rolled his eyes at me and he got up and wrote the speech. 2 days later, he comes home and he's all excited that he made it to the next round, which was interviews with teachers and the principal. And so I was very excited for him and again told him how proud I was and let's go on to the next step. So the next step was for him to get through the interviews, which he did, and he made it to the next round. And I asked him, what's the next thing that you have to do? He said, I have to write another speech. And this time he was a lot more motivated. This time he sat down. I didn't have to push him. He wrote the speech and delivered it to school, and then teachers and the students had to vote. And there was probably about a dozen kids that were running for different leadership roles, school captain, vice captain, prefect, and all sorts of things. Anyway, Jordan comes home. He's very excited, and he said, Mum, I spoke to a friend's brother who was in year 8 that time. And I asked him if he voted for me as a joke. And he said, Jordan, I don't know anybody who didn't vote for you. And he had the biggest grin on his face, and I could tell that his confidence, which he was lacking at the beginning, everything suddenly changed. 2 days later, we get a call from the principal to say Jordan had been elected as the school captain.
Wow.
And the doors that this had opened for him are things that we never even knew were possible. And I knew he was afraid at first because he didn't know what it entailed. He was going to be doing his HSC and taking on this extra work. But I can tell you the difference that it has made to him, to his confidence, and to everything else. 2 years before that, he had gone for a job interview at McDonald's, and he was knocked back twice. And so his confidence took a beating. But why I'm sharing this story is that he was overwhelmed, and he was fearful about what this new role means. He also knew he was going to have to learn a whole lot of new skills like public speaking. But he took it on, and as I said, the doors that it had opened up for him, we couldn't have even known that at the beginning. And I think designing a website is very similar. You're going in blindfolded almost, because there's so much and it is so overwhelming. But I'm standing here in the doorway today saying, I'm not going to let you mess it up.
Look, that's a wonderful, brilliant story, and congratulations to you and Jordan on that achievement, because it really is a great analogy of what you just painted in terms of there's a lot of people out there who look at a website, and I think, going back to your point, and I'm sure you're going to touch on it today, is grabbing some of those low-hanging fruit options that are out there to build a website are not always the best options, and we're going to get into the details around why that is the case. So you're here as the guru and expert today to lead not only Jordan, but now you've got a global fanfare base that you're going to have to lead through that doorway.
That's a lot of pressure, Mark.
So let's get going on it.
All right. Well, whilst we were on the subject of school, I want to talk about some numbers. And these numbers are pretty scary. So as of about a month ago, when I last looked this up, there's 1.8 billion, that's billion with a B, websites online at the moment. There's about 200 new websites coming online every single minute. So by the time you and I finish talking, that's going to be an extra 12,000 new websites. So that's a lot of competition. The second number that I wanted to talk about is that it takes anywhere between 9 to 14 touch points for people to get to know you, like you, and trust you. And this is a very important number to understand, because sometimes people think, I'll build a website and they will come, and they don't. Or at least, or maybe they come but they don't buy. So it takes about 9 to 14 ways that you have to communicate with somebody before they feel like they know you. And the third number, it takes 3 to 7 seconds to make a good first impression. So if somebody comes to your website, within 3 to 7 seconds, they need to feel like they're at home and that you get them. So I need for everybody to keep those numbers in their mind as we move through the process, because those are the numbers we're kind of working with. And if you think that you'll build a website and you can leave your full-time job, it just doesn't work like that.
It's a bit like all those numbers you just shared with us. It's a bit like dating by the sound of it. so many touch points,
like,
build your credibility. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to take you a while to find the right answer, yeah?
And there's 1.8 billion people. Yeah, okay, let's go with that.
Okay, so with all that in mind, where are we going to start? What's the first thing that when people have decided they want to build a website, what's the first thing they should choose?
So the very first thing we talk about is domain names. And what I want people to look at is your domain name long term. So think about your business, not about the product or services that you're going to be selling today, but maybe products and services that you may be selling over time, so that the domain name that you register reflects everything that you're going to be putting on your website. Because you don't want to be registering a domain name that says torches, for example, torches.com.au, when you're going to be selling a whole lot more other products and services. So the very first thing is that you need to decide what your domain name is going to be. And generally people do that with either their business name or a product name or service name, or if a lot of coaches and consultants, they trade under their own domain name if they are their own brand. Sometimes also keywords. I have a client and we registered strategic consultant, which tells people exactly what he does. And also sometimes keywords, but they're not so important. It's more you want to let people and search engines know what it is that your business does. Now, sometimes people are a little bit confused about what kind of domain name to register, whether to register .com or .com.au. And I always say, if your business is local, so if you're a coach or consultant and you're mainly consulting to people in Australia, register a .com.au domain name. If you register .com, a lot of people will see that as a global website and a business that's located out of the US. And if you're not offering services to US customers, if they're not your primary customers, then people might actually leave because they think that you're based in the US. So .com.au for businesses. I would say stay away from all the additional extensions like .biz, .sydney, .melbourne. Just stick with .com or .com.au, or for if it's a not-for-profit, then .org or .org.au. And it's better to register. So let's say, for example, that you've got a plumbing business and you're working with your sons. So you could register johnwhiteandsons.com.au, but that doesn't tell people what it is that you actually do. So maybe register something like fastplumbing.com.au. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, because we are going to 90 countries around the world today, and I know you love Australia and you're focused on your .aus. Are you recommending that people in other countries are putting .uk or .sa in South Africa and so on and so on? That should be the primary abbreviation if you're in a local business in those countries, yeah?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And I should have touched on that. Yes, I've got a single filter, .com.au, but yes, absolutely, .co.uk or .ca for Canada.
Yeah.
One thing that I have noticed is a lot of marketing experts, they're saying register .co for company, but .co is actually the extension for Colombia. So
exactly,
be careful with that.
Yeah. Look, there's a couple of other things I wanted to ask you about domain names too, as you were going through the details there. The first one is, why is the not-profit centre focused on .org? What's behind that?
I have no clue.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's been one of those things.
It was just to distinguish it between maybe like, and even you've got .gov so that people know whether it's a not-for-profit, whether it's a company, a regular business, or whether it's a government organization. What the thinking was. I mean, .org and .com have been around since the internet started. So I don't know what the thinking was, but other than to distinguish it between the type of organization that it is.
Another thing I wanted to ask you was, with the so many websites in existence and so many new ones starting all the time, as you just alluded to, chances are becoming more and more frequent now where people might have a name that they want to call their business or their website, but they can't actually register it because it's already taken. What advice do you give in that? Just keep going down your list until you find something that's available?
Yeah, and look, there's sometimes we can add an extra word to it. For example, if you wanted to register freshflowers.com.au, but that was taken. You could, for example, do sydneyfreshflowers.com.au. So and I've got a list of words that you can add, even things like online.
Yeah, right.
So Fresh Flowers online. So you can always add an extra word. Now, having said that, it's better that your domain name is shorter because it's easier to remember. And if you're printing it on brochures and business cards and things like that, you don't want something that's 64 characters long. So the shorter, the better.
Yep.
But as long as it's got keywords. And sometimes you might have to get a little bit creative. Sometimes it might not even be your business name. Just in the example that I gave before, my customer, his business name was Demontain's Strategic Consulting, and it was way too long.
Right.
So I said, let's go with Strategic Consultant, and thankfully it was still available. So if anybody's trying to come up with a domain name, and we'll put links to an article that I wrote, and that actually lists some of the additional words that you can include, or people can email me and I'll be happy to sort of come up with a few suggestions. Okay,
brilliant. And I guess in terms of another thing I don't want people to overlook when it comes to domain names, they can actually be an investment as well. As I recently found out, I have registered a few domain names of recent times, and they're cranking up the amounts of money they're worth. So, if you do come up with a couple and you register them, because let's face it, investment aside, there could be an opportunity there where you've got a couple of names that you're not too sure which one you're going to use, and you might register them both. Obviously, you're going to end up using one of them, and the other one's going to sit there idle. Just think about whether that could be an interesting name for somebody else to use. If it's going to be heightened on the keyword searches and all the rest of it, then it does become a little bit of a opportunity as well. Ivana, have you come across much of that?
Yeah, look, I have. I've heard people trying to sell domain names for thousands of dollars, and I would say probably in Australia we are regulated in what you can sell your domain name for. So if it's a global domain name and you want to sell it, absolutely. But just be aware that your local laws will dictate what you can and can't do with the domain name. So I think in Australia you probably couldn't make a lot of money registering a lot of domain names and then selling them or making that as a business. And there were a lot of people, but I think it's too hard. I would focus on your core business rather than on going, unless that's your business, selling domain names.
Yeah.
The other thing that I do want to mention is sometimes people believe that the more domain names they register, the better they will rank in search engines. And that's simply not true. Google looks at over 200 different elements of your website before it ranks a page. So having fast plumbing Sydney, or Australia is not going to make any difference. So just register one or two domain names and that's it. Spending thousands of dollars on registering extra domain names, it's not worth it. If you're not going to be trading in China, don't register whatever the Chinese extension is. Or, if you're not going to be trading in Canada, save that money and put it towards marketing.
Actually, if you've got additional funds to spend on domain names, perhaps send it to Ivana and I, and we'll crack open a few drinks before the show next time, and we'll spend that money more wisely for you than investing in domain names, Ivana. Yeah.
Good idea.
Okay, after we've got the right domain name, what do we do next? What's the next step in the process?
Okay, so we're moving on to logos. Now, I am guilty that many years ago I thought logo is not important. Logos are only for the corporates, and you don't really need a logo to get into the business. But I've changed my mind since then. I'm allowed to do that, aren't I?
You are, yeah. And you'll probably do it for the rest of your life, I can tell you that.
So, you touched on dating before. So let me give you another story. So imagine you are going on a date with somebody that you really like. Are you likely to give yourself a haircut and have your mum sew your dress? Are you going to buy shoes from maybe a second-hand store? The chances are probably not. You're probably going to want to make a great first impression. And so you'll go to the hairdresser, you'll go to the, local store to buy a beautiful dress. And going online with your logo is very similar. Like you can create it using paint and whatever else, but unless you know what you're doing, the logo is the first impression that people will have of you. It's the first thing that people will see. And if you want to make a really good impression with your customers, I'd get the logo created properly, because your logo will distinguish you from your competitors. It will show your customers what it is that you actually do. And if you think about logos these days, they're very simple. Like you look at Nike or any of the banks, it's just we've come to recognize them. And so your logo needs to represent exactly what it is that you do.
Yep.
And so I would say, rather than spending hours trying to design a logo that will save you maybe a couple of $100, in the long term, it can cost you a lot more. Because once you start putting any branding, not only on your website, but also on your business cards and on your merchandise, changing it down the line, it's going to cost you a lot more. So I would say get a professional graphic designer to create the logo for you.
Yeah. Okay. Very good advice there. So if you haven't got a logo, get to work on it. And as Ivana says, there's a lot of platforms out there today where they can help you design your own logo. Ivana, is there any particular one that you use or are familiar with that you can pass on as a tip?
Look, there's always Upwork, so you can get a proper graphic designer to create a logo for you. I have a team of graphic designers that I work with and that I absolutely trust, because they know what I'm looking for when we're creating logos for clients. So if anybody's got questions, they can maybe email me or contact me, and I'll be happy to put them in touch.
Okay.
Or organize the logo for them.
Fantastic. Good stuff. Okay, what's next after we've got our domain name sorted, we've got our beautiful logo designed? Where do we go next?
So next thing is understanding our customer. And again, I kind of, when I went into business, and we're talking like 18 years ago, I don't have a marketing degree. And so I kind of learned on the job, and I was marketing to everybody else. I didn't have a real understanding of who my customer is, what they're all about, where they hang out. And so I was trying to market to everybody. And it wasn't until a few years, probably about 5 years ago, that I actually sat down and I nailed who my ideal target audience is. And I learned this from a marketing genius, I'd call her. And she said, she gave me a checklist of all the things that I needed to understand about my customer. And let me just run through those things. So give your avatar a name, because it suddenly makes them feel real. It's not just somebody out there in the, in the target audience, but they've got a real name. How old are they? What their gender is? Are they married or single? Do they have children? Where are they located? What their probable occupation is? Approximately how much money they're earning? What challenges and pain points they're facing? And hence what challenges and pain points you're going to address with your products and services? What their goals and values are? What they read and where they hang out. Now, I'm no expert in marketing, and there's a lot of really good articles which will help you plan your ideal avatar. But I went as far as not only naming my perfect avatar, I actually found a picture online of this lady who I felt like I could resonate with. And I put it and I stuck it on the wall. And every time I write copy, I'm writing the copy for Louise, and there's also another avatar that I created called Linda. So I've got about 4 people that I talk to whenever I'm writing blogs or I'm writing any articles, and I have them in my mind. So having the understanding of who your customer is going to be will help you when you're planning the content for your website.
So there you are, folks. There's no problems in having imaginary friends, are there, Ivana?
No, absolutely. Create as many, but I'd say maybe create 3 or 4. Don't go and create 100, because I think what I see where most small business owners go wrong, they want to target everybody because they believe that the more people they're targeting, the more business they'll get. But it's actually, that's wrong. And I learned that the hard way. So I was only targeting small businesses. I wasn't sort of narrowing it down. So be very clear with who you're selling to, and then when you start writing the copy, it's going to make it a lot easier.
Yeah, great advice. And I'll just add a little bit to that because I've started recently, as many people know, a new journey into the podcast world, and it's an exciting world to get to know because it's a relatively new world in terms of people doing it for monetization purposes, and there's not a lot of detailed information out there about the industry at a deeper level, so you've got to go searching. And whilst in a lot of other areas of life, such as on YouTube and that, you get very good analytics and you get very good details about your audience, but in podcasting it doesn't really exist at the moment, so you've got to dive a bit deeper. So what Ivana is alluding to is making sure you understand your customer base, both present and future, in terms of who you're actually trying to target, because there is ways and means of doing it. And recently I just started something where I actually send out a personal note to people who I know are listening to the show and then ask them some of those specific details that Ivana mentioned, and the feedback's quite good actually, because what happens is they like to talk about themselves and then they say, well, I actually got my brother-in-law to listen to your show, and he's 45 years old. He runs a business and blah, blah, blah. And before I know it, I had another name in the database. So it's, very important to do that.
That's a great way of doing it, actually, to find out what it is that, because it's like a lot of the time we're just guessing as to what they like, where they hang out. So unless you are your own target market, and I think a lot of us market our products and services to people like us, so we have some understanding, but I think doing it the way you have done, or even asking on social media, if you have social media following or you've got business pages and that sort of thing, you can ask the question there as well.
And keep on top of it as well. I think that's the other thing. A lot of people do this analysis work and they do it maybe in January of 2020 and then they forget about it for a year or so. And by that time, your demographics of your customer base has changed. You know, you've got new customers. And again, I state the example. When I first started, I had predominantly listeners of my podcast around the world in the 45 and above age group bracket. Now I've got a lot of listeners under 35 years old. And that's just changed in the last 12 months. So now, as a result of that, you know, my marketing has to be different to attract those types of people, and it's a growing sector for me, very much so. So yeah, listen to what your audience is telling you, even if they're not communicating with you directly. Go in search of that information. It's important.
Yeah, but you have to start somewhere. So I think what you did was the right thing. You started, and then as your business evolves and everything like that, absolutely take on new extra customers. But sometimes trying to do too much at the same time, it just becomes too overwhelming. So I say maybe create 2 to 3 avatars and just focus on them. Once you've got that nailed, move on to extra ones. Yeah,
good advice there, step by step, and don't get too overwhelmed with it all. We don't have to be working 24 hours a day. 23 and a half hours is sufficient.
I know you work that much.
Now, okay, so we've got a fabulous domain name, we've got a great logo, and we've understood who our customer is. What's next, Ivana?
Okay, so the next step will be to plan the content of your website. And I was going to touch on that today, but I think that will require an episode of its own, because there's so much information that you do need to include on your website. And the reason is when people can't sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning because they're stressing about, how about the problems that they're trying to solve. they'll be looking at your website and they'll want the information there and then. They're not going to want to wait until tomorrow when they can call you. So if you don't provide them the information that they need and want in that moment, they'll just move on to somebody else. So I think we will dedicate an episode in the upcoming months to planning your content and all the pages that you should include. But let me just mention some of the pages that are often overlooked. So most people will focus, this is quite funny, when people come to me, they send me 2 pages. They send me information about themselves. So their About Us page is maybe 4 A4 pages long. Then they send me a few pages, maybe about their products and services. And that's it. And if I'm lucky, contact details. I had a lawyer and I love him. He's been with me for a long time. But when I asked him to send me the content for his website, the only thing he sent me were terms and conditions. So I thought, okay, well, I know you're excited about terms and conditions, but you need to put yourself in your customer's shoes and decide what it is that they may want to know or they need to know. So things like frequently asked questions, pricing. Now, frequently asked questions, that's one of the best pages that you can, where you address people's concerns and you address their pain points and you can answer how you will address them and how you will solve for them. So frequently asked questions. Contact us page is often overlooked. And what a lot of people, where they go wrong with contact us page is they only include a form. And I'll share a story next time about what I did when I first started in business and how I wasted $6,000 just because of the mistakes I made. So contact us page is important. Also pricing. And sometimes people go, oh my gosh, I don't want to include pricing because I don't want my competition to know how much I'm charging. Again, that's a big mistake, and we will cover all of that in one of the future episodes.
Okay, great. Yeah, as you say, there's a lot to go through there. Something else I'll add on to that part of the conversation, and this can be a handy exercise for anybody to do, is go out there and look at websites of people that you engage with in your life today. So it may be a supermarket, for instance, that you order online groceries from. It may be a plumbing service or electrician service. Go and check out their websites and just look in your own mind, go through it and say, right, is this company easy to do business with? Can I get in contact with them easy? Do I understand what they're trying to sell me? And have those things in your mind when it comes to, approaching someone like Ivana to do your website for you, because that's the kind of information she's going to need to have in detail to be able to perform and give you a really fantastic website. So nothing wrong with doing a bit of research, is there, Ivana, and having a look at
absolutely
what's out there.
And everybody's got different ideas what works for them. And most of my clients, they're experts in their own field. So I can design a website, but I don't know anything about the legal field or about real estate. So people understand what their customers need and want, and I will ask them the questions like, have you thought of doing this? And it's kind of a negotiation. Sometimes they'll fight me on it, and sometimes I'll give in, sometimes I will. But I think that's a great idea. If you can have a list of maybe half a dozen websites that you like and list the elements that you like of a particular website or the functionality that you like of a particular website, then that's a really great starting point. I had a client contact me very early on in my business, and he says, I want a website with pizzazz. And I sat there and I had to Google the word pizzazz. What does it actually mean? So please be a little bit more specific about what you like other than pizzazz. Yeah. And, as and let's start using our own experience that you and I have been working on recently, and I love the way that you did some examples for us to see whether this particular theme and freshness of that theme fitted our particular brand and what we're trying to do in our communication. So all these elements are really, really important because, at the end of the day, you've also got to feel comfortable with it. You've got to feel as though the website is representing your brand in a way that you feel comfortable with. And
with all due respect to to website designers out there, at the end of the day, if you're able to have a tool that's going to help you feel inspired about your own business and get out there and promote it to the world, then it's going to be a successful tool for you. If you don't like it, then it's going to be something that you don't invest time in and evolve it to where it could be going to as well. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. You have to be proud of it. You want to share it with the world. I mean, I get people saying, my nephew's cousin's dog's babysitters designed my website, and I'm so embarrassed by it. They don't want to share it. So absolutely, you need to know. And as I said, you understand your target audience. And, whilst we are sharing, you might want to, and this is up to you, is maybe share some of the initial concepts that we came up with, and then how they evolve to what is going to end up being your website. That might be interesting to see for people, how it actually works.
Yeah, good idea. And we can talk through that as well in terms of the eye of the customer and how we actually saw it in relation to what was put forward, because I think that's really important as well, because you've got someone coming in to do a website for you and they haven't got the history of your business and understanding where you've come from and where you're at today. So you're the only one in your business that can really truly understand that. So the way that you communicate that back to the website designer is a very important part of the process, I believe, because if you really understand your brand and what you're trying to do, then the website designer can get a better understanding on what they can create to help you communicate that messaging that you're trying to get out there. So that's a great idea.
Absolutely. And this is why one of the first questions I ask, who is your target audience? I'm going to design the layout, and the design is going to be different if you're designing for, say, the corporate world. If your audience or if your customers are corporates, it's going to be different than if you are targeting children, for example. I mean, that's an extreme, extreme example. But the more information you can give your website designer, and you know what, Mark? I just remembered I've got a report that I put together which talks about how to communicate with your website designer. So maybe we'll include that in one of the future episodes as well.
Yeah, cool. Okay, the more information we can provide, the better. And I've got to tell you at this stage, I'm getting super excited to be able to share our website with everybody so that they can actually see what you've created. Now, we've got a couple of things still to go through on the show today. We've talked about website content plan. That's going to be a future episode where we get into more detail. So what's next after that?
Okay, so the other thing that you need to think about is what website design platform you're going to use, or if you're going to find a website designer, what development platform they are to use. And there's many of them to choose from. There's Wix and Weebly and Jimdo and Squarespace. And by all means, go and do your research, but there's a reason why most people use WordPress. And so I would recommend, after you've done your research, come back and use WordPress. And the reason I say it's like this, I don't know, I'm just going to throw out a number, but it was like 70 million people using WordPress versus maybe 1 million using Wix, and those numbers change from day to day. But WordPress is it's what's called open source, which means there's people around the world working on it all the time, and it's free. So it's free for you to use. Now, one important thing is sometimes people don't understand there's two different kinds of WordPress. There's self-hosted WordPress, which means you take the WordPress platform and you host it on your own hosting, with your own hosting company like SiteGround, or I'm not going to go to HostPapa is another hosting company that you can use. And then there's also WordPress.com, and that means your website is actually hosted on WordPress. But for businesses, I would actually have self-hosted WordPress. And the reason is it gives you a lot more flexibility. With WordPress.com, you can't install plugins, which means you can't have extra functionality, and you're limited in the themes that you use. So I would say take the files from WordPress.org and install them on a hosting platform or with a hosting company. And these days, most hosting companies make it very easy to install WordPress. So that's important, because sometimes I have people coming to me and they say, I've got a WordPress website, and then we find out it's a WordPress.com, and we start from scratch. So that's one of the first thing, is choose the platform that you're going to be working with. The other thing, what I want to say about WordPress, it can seem a little bit daunting unless you have the right theme. And I think where people are often confused, they think that a theme is what gives them the look, but it's not. The theme is what gives you the functionality behind the scenes. So you can have one theme and it can deliver like the most amazing look and everything like that, but it's difficult to use. So what you want to do is want to find a theme that is paid, so you pay for the theme, and they're not expensive. You can pay between say $30 and $60 and you get a paid theme. And I tell you why. It's because if you look at your business long term, your WordPress keeps evolving, and so you want your theme to keep evolving and changing the way WordPress does, and you want it to be compatible. If you start with a free WordPress theme, the developers have no incentive to keep developing that theme. So after 6 months or 12 months, you may find that it's not working or it's not compatible with some of the plugins. So it's important. So I would say get yourself a theme, and I will recommend one that I use for 99% of my clients. So make sure that the theme gets upgraded, that you can get tech support. So if you want to do something, you can get tech support from the developers. Make sure that it's being downloaded and used by at least 3,000 to 5,000 people, because again, the developers have an incentive to keep updating it. Make sure that it's mobile responsive. And that it's compatible with some of the major plugins. And plugins is what gives you functionality in WordPress. And again, we will talk about that in the future. So to save people a lot of time, go WordPress. Have a look at the others, but go WordPress. And the theme that I recommend is called Enfold, Enfold, and you can buy that through a place called Theme Forest. I think it's about $59 and I've been using it for about 5 or 6 years maybe even longer, since I started using WordPress, and it's gone from strength to strength. So the developers are fantastic. They, sometimes I need help, so I'll reach out to them and they show me how to do things. So Enfold theme, I highly recommend it. Check it out and see what you think. And the good thing is it's super easy to use and update. So whether you design the website yourself or you get somebody like me to design the website, you can then easily do all the updates, whether it's information, add videos, add slideshows, everything is drag and drop.
Brilliant. Now I want to go back, because there's a lot that you said in that last piece that you just shared that I think is really, really important, and going to put my own hand on my heart here and just tell everybody where I stuffed up. Because what happens when you start a new business, there's a lot of things going on. You get excited, you get emotional, you want to tell the world about your ideas and your products and your services and everything else you're doing. And those low-hanging fruit website designers, such as Wix and those other ones that you mentioned, they're very easy to grab off the shelf, and therefore you think you're going to get your business out there to the world as quickly as possible and as easy as possible. And as I've learned, and that's why I'm now going to WordPress because of Ivana.
Good decision, Mark.
But in all seriousness, we know the value of WordPress. We do know it. And I think what I'm trying to suggest is that hold back the emotion sometimes and trying to get your business out there to the world as quickly as you possibly can, because what business is about is actually doing it thoroughly and doing it sustainably over the long term. And whether it be website development or whether it be product development within your company, there's still going to be customers there tomorrow. There's going to be opportunities there tomorrow, and it's better to get all these things, what I call fundamental business tools, in place correctly from the start. So I'm eating humble pie. I'm going back after a year of using Wix, now transferring into the WordPress world, and we're going to go from strength to strength. But I wanted just to put it out there because as a startup entrepreneur, business owner, I know that when there's that emotion attached to getting your thing out there to the world, we all want to run very fast and make it happen tomorrow. But all these things that Ivana's sharing with us are absolutely relevant and on point. And take another month, take another couple of weeks. It doesn't matter. Get it right.
That's right. Yeah. And you know what? It's and that's why I recommend a theme which makes it just as easy as what Wix is to create the website. So if you need help with any aspect of it, just reach out. If you need somebody to install it for you, don't hesitate to reach out and get somebody to do that for you if you want to design the rest of the website yourself. But like Mark said, take your time and really think about it, because you don't want to be, and we are seeing this with Mark's website now. We're down a year or 2 years that you've been running with it, and we're having to backtrack and transfer all of the information. So I'm not sure whether the website will be up and running in a week, but within the next couple of weeks, because there's still a lot of things that need to be added, and we need to transfer it over to your hosting. But I think, take your time and look at it long term, because you don't want to go down the path, spend hours and hours and hours investing into building something, because you can't take a Wix website and transfer it into WordPress. You're going to have to go and manually transfer all the information.
I've got a smile on my face because I've got a surprise for you. You don't
for me?
You don't know how fast I can work behind the scenes. So that
oh really?
That website's going to be launched in a week from now. I can tell you that right now.
Okay, all right, I can't wait.
So that's fantastic, and agree. And I think in terms of some of those things that we've gone through today, and I'm just going to throw up the list again, Ivana, if you want to go through the different things that we've talked about today.
So we've talked about the importance of actually having a website and not having just social network or a landing page. We talked about why it's important to choose the right domain name, why you should have a logo designed by somebody other than your brother's sister's nephew. And we've talked about how important it is to understand your customer. And also we touched on having a plan for the content of your website and choosing the platform for your website and the theme. And we might put a link to Enfold so that people can check it out and see what they think. So if you are planning to design your website, so what we like to do is set some homework for next time, and that is come up with a domain name. And if you need help, either post a question below the video, or you can email me. Get a logo created. Again, I'm happy to help if you need it, or go to somewhere like Upwork and get a professional graphic designer to create it. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And create an avatar of your ideal client. So those are the three things that would be ideal for you to have ready, so that as we're moving through the process, you're not going to have to think about it, because otherwise it will become overwhelming when suddenly we hand over the next project and the next homework, that there's going to be suddenly too much. So if you can do those three things in the next month, you're going to be in a good place.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'd like to say too that we've been talking about building a new website here, but there's a lot of websites out there today that need a bit of refurbishment and a bit of re-engineering, right? So if you're sitting on a website today, and maybe you've got a WordPress website, but maybe it doesn't look so good, or it's not doing the job, it's not being effective for you, then this whole series that Ivana's walking us through can also help you, because it's about redesigning or recreating what you've already got. If it's not working properly, it's time to pivot, folks, and it's time to come up with a way to make things work. So just wanted to throw that out there as well, Ivana. It's not just for people that are starting from ground zero here in terms of building a new website. We're also looking at helping those people that have got something in place that's not doing the job today.
Absolutely. So certain things, they might have a domain name already, so they can tick that off as having done that. And so it's it's hard to design this course for everybody, but people will find that some things they may have done, and in which case it's great, and you can move on to the next stage.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, listen, we've got to the end of our first exciting episode together here, Ivana, and you've done a wonderful job, I must say. And
Thank you.
Everybody listening and watching today, Ivana's going to be back once a month. And what we should do, Ivana, is we can put the schedule up online for people to know when we're going to be doing these shows. And if we have any changes, we can let everybody know, but we can actually let you know what the plan is once a month that Ivana's going to join us for the website series. And you can check it out here on the Humanity YouTube channel, or soon on the Humanity website that's going to be launched as well. So, Ivana, any last thoughts before we head off today about websites or anything else?
Look, I would just say it's going to be an overwhelming process no matter what you do. And I say tackle it when you're feeling fresh. If you're tired, go and have a nap, go for a walk, and then come back to it. We all go through feeling overwhelmed, and you're going to come across challenges that you might not even know about. So just take your time, and hopefully with our guidance, you'll be able to push through and come out on the other end the way Jordan did when he came out as a captain.
We can all aim to be captains in our ships, can't we? So
Absolutely.
Whether we're actually living and working on a ship, or whether we just want to be the captain of a ship, we can do that. Ivana, it's been fantastic having you on the show again today. Thank you for your time, and I'm really already excited to get back and do our next one next month and show everybody the Humanity website that you've helped us with.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark.